time for our Friday live stream featuring yours truly, Patricia Traina, daEntertainah, and special guest edition, BadDog. That's coming your way next on the LockedOn Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. What is going on, everybody? Stand up. I know. I can't do it. I got to come up with my own catchphrase. But anyway, welcome everybody to the live stream of the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Traina. I've got daEntertainah and the one and only BadDog. You've been asking for him. He's here. We made it happen. So welcome, gentlemen, to the podcast. Welcome, everybody who is tuned in. We're going to have a great time tonight. I just know it. The Giants are winning. Chris, I'm sorry about the Mets. But
that's all right.
We won't talk about that. So let's get this going. You guys know the deal. You want to ask a question, pop it into the comments box. We will get to your questions as we go along. Otherwise, we're just going to talk Giant football. And boy, guys, lots and lots to talk about, and all good stuff too.
Yes, been a long time since we could say that.
Yes,
about the start of a season. We're winning our fourth game in December, so it's nice to win one in October.
Yeah, we've already matched our win total from last year, so it's definitely a great start, 4-1, and I think I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. I think this is our toughest test outside of the divisional games this year on the schedule. Especially traveling back from London. So, you figure might be a little jet lagged with that. And obviously Lamar Jackson has been playing at a very high level. So this is definitely going to be a big test this week. We'll see where the New York Giants stand.
Yeah, but you know what? I thought about it. The Ravens are coming off of a hard-fought divisional game on Sunday night.
That's true.
So they're going to maybe they left a little bit on the field. Who knows? But what's interesting about it is the Giants this week, their schedule replicated what they've done all along. I thought they might practice a little later. I thought they might change up the schedule a little bit. Brian Daboll has kept the schedule consistent. And I thought about it, and I'm like, that could be a good thing, because if you start messing with the schedule, practicing later, practicing earlier because of the time zone changes and whatnot, you can throw guys' biorhythms off.
Yeah, I mean, consistency is definitely key. Getting guys in a routine, getting them in rhythm. I think it helps everybody out for sure. And, the interesting thing with Baltimore is you think about Baltimore, and obviously you think of Lamar Jackson, but you think of their great defense. Well, this year, they're the worst passing defense in the league, and they're giving up 5 yards a carry. So, I mean, is this the week that the Giants offense seems like it's getting better as the weeks progress too? That was definitely the best offensive game they had, I thought, this year was against Green Bay. And I'll be anxious to see exactly how they attack Baltimore, because I think I was going to put it on Twitter, but I don't want to get too crazy. But Daniel Jones, I think this could be a breakout game for Daniel Jones. I really do.
Yeah, definitely. And, I got to ask you guys something. The Ravens have the worst passing defense, but aren't they like tied for first or something like that in interceptions? How is that possible?
Yeah. What I saw, and I saw the same thing BadDog did. I tweeted it out a couple of days ago. And then when I looked into the numbers and from what people told me after I tweeted it, the Baltimore had a ton of injuries in that secondary. They're starting to get healthier, but I still think we're going to be able to throw on them a bit. But the last 2 weeks, they've gotten much better there. I think Allen only had about 200 yards against them, and Burrow had 190. The first 3 weeks, they got lit up against Tua, against Mac Jones, and against Joe Flacco of the New York Jets. So the pass defense has gotten a bit better the last 2 weeks, but I definitely think there'll be some opportunities. But, yeah, you hit it on the head right now. That's what I worry about most going into this game. The Ravens lead the league in turnovers created with 11. And they have the best turnover differential in football with +5. So they haven't been good, like BadDog was saying. They on the ground, too. They're giving up 5 yards a carry in terms of yards against, but they've been opportunistic, much like the Cowboys defense was last year, where they led the league in turnovers created. So the Giants got to be careful with the football, but I do think they're going to be able to move the football against them.
And the Giants could be getting Wan'Dale Robinson back this week.
Yeah.
There's optimism there that he should be ready to go. But then again, there's been optimism the last couple weeks and he hasn't quite been ready. But I think this week is his best chance. Galladay, Tony, they've been declared out, as we know. So you've got Sills, you got Richie James will be in there. They'll probably call up Marcus Johnson again, I would think, just to give themselves more receivers. And here's the interesting thing, we talked about that Ravens defense. You also have Saquon Barkley, who's going to play a big factor in this. Now, I found it interesting that Barkley had a very low number. I have to go back and look it up, but I looked up to see how many times he's faced a stack box, and it's really low, which is surprising. Now, in looking at the Ravens, their run defense, I mean, to me, it looks like their safeties or their inside linebackers just don't fill the gaps properly. I mean, what do you guys see when you look at that run defense?
Go ahead, BadDog.
Oh, I mean, with Saquon I don't even know where to start with this. Barkley has definitely looked a lot better this year. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But when it comes to Baltimore, with Saquon Barkley, it's definitely he's one of those guys that's 2 yards, 1 yard, 3 yards, and then bang, he can break one, and that's really all it takes. But Baltimore, I don't know. I don't see a lot of Baltimore Ravens games. I can't sit here and say I do. I don't have NFL package, and I live in New York, so I don't get a lot of Baltimore games. But the 5 yards of carry that they were giving up seemed a little much for them. Usually you would think about them stacking the box or just having a much more dominant defense up front than they have. So I don't really know. I think the Giants have been able to move the ball. I think that their run blocking is certainly ahead of their pass blocking. And if we're going to have any big plays in the passing game, it's going to be set up by running the ball. The other guy that I'm looking forward to seeing, and he had a breakout game against Green Bay, was Darius Slayton. I mean, I'm hoping that Darius Slayton can continue to get better. It was nice to see him catch a couple of big passes, to have a big game, because we know Daniel Jones' rookie season, those two guys had a really good chemistry. Had 8 touchdowns his rookie season, then it kind of fell off. I think some of that may have been coaching. I think some of that may have been mental. But if Saquon Barkley, if the Giants can consistently at least try to run the ball, not get away from it. And I think they've done a good job of that this year, kind of sticking with it. Barkley's not going to carry the ball 30 times. But it'll be interesting to see exactly how they attack Baltimore. This team has been a good second half team as far as making adjustments and figuring out, what didn't work in the first half and fixing it in the second half. So I'll be interested to see how they use Saquon, but I definitely think that they have to use Barkley. They have to move the ball. And then Daniel Jones getting a little healthier. His leg's obviously a weapon too. So it'll be interesting to see how Kafka and Dable attack that Ravens defense for sure.
And I have those numbers, by the way. I looked them up real quick. So Barkley's, according to Next Gen Stat, has faced a loaded box 14.43% of his carries, which is just mind-blowing considering what he's been able to do. And the Ravens, according to Sports Radar, have loaded the box against opponents 28.57%. So they don't really load the box up a whole lot. Is it because of the quality of opponents? I don't know. But I definitely think, getting Barkley out in space, a lot of Barkley's better runs have come out, out in space behind the tackles and whatnot, outside of the tackle box. So I'd like to see him get involved. I just find it amazing, and knock on wood, I hope I'm not jinxing him, is that nobody has kind of figured out how to shut him down there. But, I give credit to Kafka and to Dable. They keep coming up with ways to get this guy out into space and get him loose. It's like they're 5 steps ahead of the opposition.
Yeah, and I don't care who we're going up against this year. The offense has to revolve around Saquon Barkley. He's far and away our best weapon. He's the guy that this offense revolves around. And you talk about coming up with ways, and in order to, for him to continue to put up good numbers for the Giants. One thing that I've noticed, especially last week, the week before was out of emergency, but last week they really started going to the Wildcat, and it was working. They had 2 motion penalties on 2 Wildcat plays, but it was working even on those plays. It's just that they got called for unfortunate penalties. So I think they go back to that this week. I'm not saying they're going to overuse it, but I think they use it sparingly. I expect them to use it 5, 6, 7 times in this game. It was working. And if Wan'Dale Robinson is going to play, which it seems like he's gonna, that's only going to help that more, because you think about a player like that that's going to be able to motion over the middle, be an option for Barkley to pitch it forward. That's somebody that the defense is going to have to account for, and it should only make that Wildcat even more successful. So I think that's going to be a wrinkle in the playbook this week. I think the Giants are going to continue to try to feature the run. And yeah, Slayton, I do think he could build off of last week. He's our number one wide receiver right now, as crazy as that may sound. And I'm really excited to see how they use Wan'Dale Robinson, but they can't get away from the run. And I know Baltimore's been a team, and we've been a team that's been able to come back this year, and Baltimore's been a team that's coughed up leads. They gave up 28 points to Miami in the fourth quarter when they lost to them. But this is not a team you want to fall behind. Baltimore, historically speaking, since they've had Lamar Jackson, they excel in the time of possession because they're able to run the ball so effectively. If we fall behind by 10 points or so, it's going to be really tough with the ability that they have in terms of running the football to come from behind against this team. So I hope the Giants come out, much more prepared in the first half this week.
Yeah. And, speaking of Lamar Jackson, that guy worries me. Rodgers worried me, but not like Lamar Jackson. I mean, that guy can absolutely destroy you with his legs. I think I want to say he's the leading rusher on Baltimore. I'd have to go back and look it up. He is. Okay. So, I mean, obviously, I think they're going to have to put a spy on him. I would think that would make the most sense. Who's drawing that assignment, you think? You think it's going to be McKinney? You think it's going to be, maybe Jalen Smith? Who do you see drawing that assignment?
I mean, McKinney, both of those are really good. I would think Jalen Smith. I think he'd be the shooter because he's a linebacker. We're still kind of thin in the secondary. It'll be interesting to see if Landon Collins gets any time this week. I mean, I don't know what kind of football shape Landon Collins is in, but maybe that's something he could do. He was always a better box safety than a cover safety. So maybe it's possible that they bring him in for that type of thing on 3rd and short or 3rd and medium or something, but they definitely have to figure out a way to stop Lamar Jackson from running, or at least try to contain it. I don't know if there's any way you can possibly stop him fully, but if you can keep him in check, not allow him to get those 40-yard runs, get out of the pocket and really make something happen, because he's big, he's strong, he's fast, very tough to bring down, one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the league. And he's a very dangerous weapon back there. So the Giants have to do something. We talked about this before, though. If anybody knows Lamar Jackson's Wink Martindale.
Yes.
And I understand, I've had fans on my page or, Giants fans say, well, Lamar Jackson knows Wink Martindale too. I said, yes, that's true, but they don't know the Giants. Like, Wink Martindale knows those players. Wink Martindale was in that locker room. He knows what all the players are going to do, not just Lamar Jackson. So, it'll be interesting, but I'm looking forward to this game, man. It's been a long time since I can sit here like on a Friday and go, I can't wait till the Giants play.
Yeah.
Because most of the time it's like, wow, it's Sunday already. Wow, they're playing already. Now it seems like these weeks are 12 days long. But I feel like we can beat anybody. I really do. I feel like we've been in every game. Like I said, the adjustments have been great, and it's just amazing the difference that competent coaching makes. It is unbelievable the difference in confidence I believe these guys have, and confidence goes a long way in an athlete. So something overlooked, it doesn't show up in the box score, it's not a statistic, it's an intangible that a lot of people overlook. But I think you see it in Daniel Jones's game this year. While he's not throwing for 300 yards a game, you can see that he's very more decisive in the decision making, and I feel like that's certainly helped him and the team. It's definitely made him more of a leader. And I see the teammates believing in him. They believe in Dable. They believe in one another. And, while some of the fans may not, the media may not, as long as they believe, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And, speaking of coaching, I raised this point on my Monday show. I said, I found it kind of odd that Daniel only ran once in the first half, and then all of a sudden he was running wild in the second half. And I wondered, I know I put it to David Turner, who does the breakdowns with me on Mondays. I said, is it possible that the coaching staff purposely did that in order to keep Green Bay from making an adjustment? And he goes, I don't think they want to get that cute. Well, it's interesting because the question was put to Mike Kafka this week, and he kind of admitted that was indeed part of the game plan. So this is what to your point, Dog, about how coaching has made such a difference. You don't know the half of it. I don't even know the half of it. The stuff that this team prepares for, the stuff that they have still in their bag of tricks that maybe we haven't seen yet, how they're able to adjust. Now, obviously they'd like to do things one way, but if that one way isn't working, it's not a situation where, okay, guys, now what do? We don't have a plan B or a plan C. This staff has backup plans, and they're just so well prepared. And the proof's in the pudding. I mean, take a look at the job, for example, in the defensive secondary. I mean, we all thought
Incredible.
that was going to be a weak spot, an Achilles heel. Jerome Henderson has done a whale of a job.
We didn't have a
with
Dory
those guys.
Jackson last week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And that's a great point you brought up about Kafka that I didn't even think about while I was calling the game. But yeah, it's entirely possible that that's exactly what they did, because going into that game, everybody wasn't sure whether or not they were going to be able to use Daniel Jones's legs. And Kafka maybe said, "Listen, we'll hit him with the legs in the second half when they least expect it. You're going to think that you're kind of limited due to the fact that we're not going to use your legs too much in the first half." So that's entirely possible. And the second half adjustments in that game were incredible. And I'm not taking away any of the credit from the defense. The defense was awesome in the second half. They held Aaron Rodgers scoreless. I know we gave up 2 points at the end, but what's not being talked about enough is the offensive adjustments in the second half. And I know that the offense was doing pretty good actually in the first half as it wore along. We possessed the ball for over 15 minutes on our first 2 drives in the second half. Aaron Rodgers talked about it in the Pat McAfee show. He only had 1 drive in the first 20 minutes. By the time he got the ball for the second time in the second half, there was 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So the offense did a great job in terms of assisting the defense last week. So on both sides, there were great adjustments, great coaching. That's been the driving force with this team. And it's not just Daniel Jones. Dexter Lawrence looks like an all-pro. Dexter Lawrence looks like Aaron Donald right now with the way that this guy is playing week in and week out through 5 weeks. And that goes to the coaching. That goes to Wink. He's always had the talent. There's a reason he went 17th overall. And there's several other players that are, O'Shane Ximenez, Jihad Ward, like, these guys have definitely, done much better than any of us thought they would going into the year. And yeah, that's the biggest difference in this team. And, I think as Giants fans, you forget what good coaching is like and how big of an impact it could have on a football team.
And
how good do you think Dexter Lawrence will be once Leonard Williams is healthy? I mean, is Leonard Williams going to play this week? Are we going to finally get to see Leonard Williams?
I think Leonard's going to be in the lineup this week.
Yeah, so we get to see all of our guys.
And just wait, BadDog, until Kayvon Thibodeau hits where we know he's going.
Right. Well, he's been very disruptive.
He was really good last week. Yeah,
he was, and he's still coming back off of that knee injury.
Yeah.
I was talking. Okay, spoiler alert. I have Harry Carson coming up on the show Wednesday. I did a sit down with him, and I asked him about Thibodeau, and Harry said, "You got to remember, he's still coming back from that knee injury." He says, "As he gets healthier and healthier, look out." Yeah. So, that's exciting. But guys, when was the last time you can remember this Giants team playing complementary football, the offense complementing the defense, and even special teams getting involved? It's just they're all on the same page, almost like a well-oiled machine. And gosh, it has been so long since we've seen this.
It just goes to show you sometimes execution wins out over talent. You look at our roster and you're sitting there, especially on the offensive side of the ball, besides Saquon Barkley going, they're throwing to Richie James, they're throwing to David Sills, that's Daniel Jones, who's taking a beating 4 years here in New York. I'm part of the beating. That's, part of the people that has given him a beating over the years. But again, I think confidence goes a long way. And I think Dable set the tone. And Chris called this when we were calling the game. 8 minutes or 10 minutes ago in the game, Chris said, if the Giants score like 2 minutes ago, do they go for 2? And that's exactly what happened. And Dable said, I have the confidence in these guys to go for 2, get the 2 points and win the game. I swear that set the tenor for the entire season. And I feel like these players say this coach believes in us. He believes in our talent and we want to play for him. I don't know how it works in the locker room with the other guys that wasn't there, obviously, but there's just a different feel about this team, about the coaching staff. The last, couple of years, we had Ivy League minds, right? All 3 of those guys went to Ivy League schools, but how good were their football minds? Dable's the type of guy I look at and go, I could have a beer with that guy, Exactly. and he's a genius. So it is exciting. It's so much fun to have good Giants football back and be excited about something. Giants fans have suffered for the last 5 years, and enjoy it, man. I think this team is moving in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. Right. That was a tone setter. Like you said, the 2-point conversion at the beginning of the year, I think that was Dable telling them, I believe in you guys. I don't care what everybody in this chat thinks about you, Daniel Jones. I believe in you. I believe that you could get the job done. And it's on both sides of the ball. Defense, we don't always like what we see when they blitz on 3rd and 20 and they give up a first down. Yes. But Wink Martindale is saying to his defense, I believe in you guys. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm putting the game in your hands. And that, I think, is a big part of the reason why these players are performing as well as they are. When you're told that we believe in you, we're not going to be conservative, we think that you could get the job done, it makes you want to play that much harder.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great point. I want to put this comment here from Authentic up here because this I have to acknowledge this. Richie James has been a real bright spot. He's a gamer. Richie James, to me, summarizes what this football team is all about. Dog, you mentioned, maybe this isn't the most talented roster, but this is a smart roster. You have guys who know what they're doing, okay, like a Richie James, where when you know what you're doing, how many times have we heard it that the game of football is more than 50% mental. It's like 90% mental, 10% physical. And you get guys like Richie James, David Sills. That's why he's playing. People say, oh, why is David Sills out there? He knows the playbook. These are guys who are smart. And if you break down the little intricacies, we just put something up on Giants Country from Coach Gene. And he pointed out a little tiny intricacy on a play that David Sills made a heads up move for, if you want to check that out. These are the reasons why these guys are playing, folks, and why, you don't necessarily see the Kenny Galladays or, the bigger names. It's all about intelligence. And think back to what Shane and Dable said. They said they want guys who are smart, who are, willing to come in and work. And by gosh, that's what they've got on this roster. So, you mentioned grit as an adjective for this team, but football smart goes a long way with this team.
He mentioned it. The one thing I'll say about Dable, they said right away, he said this in training camp, that the guys that played the best are going to earn their. It didn't matter how much you made or where you were drafted or any of that. He said the guys that earn their playing time are going to get their playing time, and that's why we see Richie James and David Sills.
And we would have seen Colin Johnson too.
It's such a shame because I love Colin Johnson. I've liked him since he played at Texas, and we won't. I'm a Sooner fan. We won't talk about the Sooners this year because. They turned into the Giants. I don't know how that happened. But I was excited for Colin Johnson. I thought he was having a great season or preseason, and Chris was right. I feel like Colin Johnson may have been a big part. He's a big body guy. He could have been a good red zone target, but the fact that this team is making it work with what they have is a testament to great coaching, great effort, and like you said, Pat, great execution in football smarts. Again, these are intangibles. A lot of people just want to look at statistics, especially when they talk about Daniel Jones. Like, oh, he's only throwing it for 190 yards. That's a terrible job. And I'm like, you have to watch the difference in the way this man has played this year, as opposed to the last couple of years. Does he make mistakes? Still, of course he does. Does he stare down the receiver sometimes? Yes. But ever since he threw that one really bad pass week one and Dable kind of got on him a little bit, you see how I feel like that fueled him. I feel like he needed that. I feel like he needed somebody to say, listen, man, he probably went over. I don't know what he said, but I'm thinking he said, listen, I believe in you. You can't do that, though. That's not a good play. It's not a good football play. And Daniel Jones drove him right down and scored the game on a touchdown. Yeah. I swear that changed everything. That drive changed everything this year. So, like I said, I'm pumped.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Dog, because, up until that point, I think people were still, the jury was out on Daniel. And I'm not saying, the jury's back in, because some people, no matter who, they're going to be like, they got to get rid of him. They've got to, look towards the next quarterback. I believe, and it's funny, spoiler alert, when I was speaking with Harry kind of said the same thing. I believe the Giants would like for Daniel to be their franchise quarterback moving forward. They just had to bring it out in him. And so far you could say that Dable has done that. And hey, if Daniel needed that early season kick in the butt to make it happen, more power to Dable for making it happen. So, coaching, it comes down to coaching again. We say it all the time, Joe Judge, Ben McAdoo, you name the coach, they always smart, tough, dependable, blah, blah, blah. It was all words. It's like, where was it? We didn't really see it. So how is it that we're seeing it now?
What's so ironic? And I know Dable's technically a Patriot guy. He was with them, I think, for a little bit. And he's also from Alabama. So he has the same roots as Joe Judge in terms of being a Belichick guy. But we haven't really talked about that. But while BadDog was speaking, I was thinking about it. I'm like, that sounds like a lot like Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick was the type of guy, he didn't care who you were. He didn't care if you were a practice squad guy. If you bought into his scheme, if you were able to execute at a higher level than maybe a more talented player, you were going to get to see time on the football field. So for me, Dable almost feels like he's a Belichick disciple, but he's not trying to impersonate Belichick.
Right.
Which is where I think a lot of these guys that have come from Belichick have failed. He's not doing that. He's not coming in and giving you this tough guy routine. Yep. I said it when he went during his first interview when he got the job. It was almost like when I stream on YouTube. He just went up to the podium, wasn't prepared. He just shot. He just talked, and it was like he had a normal conversation. Where with Judge, everything seemed pre-rehearsed. It didn't feel organic. This guy feels like he's a guy that's more comfortable in his skin, and he does give off that Belichick vibe in the sense that he doesn't care where you were drafted. It's about being able to get the most out of you as a football player, but he's not trying to impersonate him, which is where Joe Judge failed.
Hit it right on the head, Chris. That's exactly how he struck me. I mean, Dable's a guy, he's true to himself. He'll joke around, but think about it. People we asked him about, I forget whose injury it was. I think it was Daniels, and he looked down and he goes, "Let me see." And we're thinking, okay, he's checking to see if it was a high ankle sprain or a low ankle sprain. He goes and he looks up and goes, "It's an ankle." So he's not going to give you information more than what you need to. But he's always been the type who, what he can do for you, he will. And he said that. And he's been very good with the media, I might add. I mean, I could tell you guys stories where he's just, I've been bowled over. I'm like, wow, no coach has ever done that before.
Did you see did you get to see the reaction that he had after the win in London with the crowd?
Oh, yes.
How great was that?
Oh, yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. But that's the love. It's almost like a love affair, and it's a good thing, because Dable is so authentic and genuine. Is he competitive? Absolutely. I mean, I say it all the time. And Dog, you said it before. He's the type of guy you want to sit down at a bar and have a beer with. But he's also not a pushover. People are like, well, is he soft? What's he like? No, he's not soft. He'll get on your case if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And that Daniel Jones incident was a perfect example. But this guy, he for a first-time head coach, he sure has it down, I think.
He does. What I also think helped a lot is the fact that both he and Shane came over from Buffalo together. So I think that already gave him an advantage as opposed to the other guy. They were kind of thrown together. Dave Gettleman did not work with Joe Judge or Pat Shurmur. They just kind of got thrown together, where Dable and Shane were on the same team. They came over, and I think they had a game plan coming in, and I think they've been on the same page. And I certainly think that helps. So, Pat, you mentioned the ankle, and Chris, you mentioned this earlier. So I wanted to ask both of you guys this question, because Chris, you mentioned the Wildcat. Do you think that they had that the entire time, or do you think when both Jones and Tyrod Taylor got hurt and they had to improvise and use it, that they said, wow, this actually works? Because it was working.
Yeah.
So do you think that they had that implemented at some, because we hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we saw them use it last week after both of the quarterbacks got hurt the week before. So
that's a good question. I'll start, Pat, and then I'll let you go. Okay. I think they had it from the beginning. The reason I say that is I went to training camp and I saw them using it a lot. I think the main reason why we haven't seen it up until the last couple of weeks was because they didn't have their full arsenal of weapons. They didn't have Kadarius Toney. They didn't have Wan'Dale Robinson, so they were running much more of a base offense. But I think that was always something that they plan to implement at some point this year. And like I said, getting Wan'Dale Robinson back, that's only gonna further develop the Wildcat and make it that much more dangerous, which is why I'm so excited to see him back in the lineup this week. But I think they were always going to use it, but they've been without their pieces up until hopefully this week with Robinson coming back.
And to add to what Tainah said, you should see some of the things they have in their bag of tricks.
Yeah.
You're not going to break it out all early on. There are things that, I remember early in the season, for example, I was saying, my gosh, the pass protection is so shoddy. Why aren't they sliding the pocket around? And, I happened to say that to somebody and they were like, wait, you'll see. And they started doing it. They started moving the pocket. There were other things that I thought, that I wondered, why haven't they done it? And they started to do it. So this coaching staff, and again, I can't say enough about them. They have worked and prepared for every possible scenario. So I do think the Wildcat was something that they had right from the get-go, and it wasn't just something that they brought out because they lost both their quarterbacks. It's something that, you got to keep your opponent on
what the
edge.
most exciting thing to me is, as I'm hearing you talk, because we're talking about the offense, I don't even think this offense has scraped the surface
yet. It hasn't. No.
And this offense is already leaps and bounds better than it was last year. Right now, we're 13th in the NFL in red zone offense. The last 2 years, we were 32nd and 31st. Mm-hmm. We're one of the better running offenses in football. I've told people my honest opinion going into the year, second half of the season, we are going to be throwing the football a lot more than we are now. Yep. I don't think this offense has scraped the surface yet. And the most encouraging thing this past week, that offensive line started to get the job done in terms of pass protection. That should only get better. As that gets better and we get our weapons back, this offense is going to be a lot more aggressive than some people may realize.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, got to take a quick break. I got to run a commercial. We're going to hear from LinkedIn. Great service for you small business owners. Don't go anywhere. More coming up with Traina, Tainah, and BadDog. Hey, small business owners, if you're looking for the right people to help your small business fire on all cylinders, you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs today. Post a free job listing in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, which lets everybody know that you're hiring, and let your network refer to you the people that you might want to hire and talk to. Over 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn every single week and are just waiting to find opportunities with employers like you. With LinkedIn Jobs, simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize whom you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, that's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. See site for details. All right. Welcome back, everybody. You got Traina, Tainah, and the dog. All right. You asked for it. You asked for it. You wanted to see Tainah and the dog and on this show.
I like the way that you say dog.
The dog.
The dog.
The dog.
You almost make it sound like the way Lawrence Taylor says it. We're going to come at him like a bunch of crazy wild dogs or whatever.
That's right. Crazy dogs and have some fun. Well, we've been having some fun this year. It's about time.
And we're having fun, hopefully, on the show. I know I am. I hope everybody else is. Folks, we're going to start taking your questions. I know some of you have been asking them as we've been going along, and we're getting a lot of comments in. So repost them and I'll start, putting them up on the screen. But let's talk about the injury report. I know that was one of the questions a lot of people were wondering about. I saw a question where, Wan'Dale comes back, who sits. I don't know that they're going to necessarily sit anybody. I mean, if you look at how Daniel Jones has kind of distributed the ball around, he's thrown it to, it hasn't been to just one or two receivers. He's, thrown it around to a bunch of guys. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it necessarily means that, if Wan'Dale Robinson comes back, that, say, for example, David Sills isn't going to get any targets. I mean, do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think, like we said, whoever earns the playing time is going to get it. So I think that you will see. I mean, he's coming off a knee, so I don't know how many snaps, if he's going to be on a snap count or what. I don't think Wan'Dale Robinson's going to go out there and have a full workload. But I agree, Pat. I don't think anybody's going to kind of sit. I think they would just, put the rotation out there, see what he does. Maybe he comes in, like Chris said, on a wildcat, or they try a couple of bubble screens, one of those little shovel passes to him and try to get him out in space. But it was interesting to see how they use him. They drafted him in the second round. They obviously had some kind of plan for him, or they wouldn't have went in that direction. So, I don't think there's going to be like, he's automatically in the lineup and somebody else is going to sit down. They've been winning with the guys they have. So I think Wan'Dale Robinson's going to get some time, but I think if he wants more, he's going to have to earn it. And I think Dable has shown that. Yeah,
definitely on that. I mean, and that's a good point. Guys generally coming back off injury, they are on a pitch count. So that would be my expectation as well, coming off of that MCL, excuse me. So, all right. Kansan Zero asked, does Tony get put on IR? I'm surprised they didn't put him on IR beforehand. And I know Dable was asked about that. I think it was today. And he said, well, he's been making progress, but it just seems like every time this guy makes progress, it's like 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. I guess they're at a point where they feel that they can continue to carry him. I don't know, but it's frustrating.
It's been a disaster with Kadarius Toney, and a lot of people got on me before the year started because people in my stream asked me who's the most overrated player in the Giants, and I said Kadarius Toney before the year started because, and I still think he's got a lot of talent, but people were acting like this guy was already the second coming of Odell Beckham, and he had done so much in the NFL, and the guy's had one great game, one incredible game, but one great game in his career, and it's unfortunate because we see the ability, we see the potential, but he can't get on the field. And at this point, I have very little faith that he's going to be a difference maker for this team long term. I hate to say that, but he had injury problems in college. He's had injury problems in the pros. I'd love to see him out there. I think he could be a difference maker. But even when he does get back out there, I don't have confidence that he's going to be able to stay out there.
Yeah. I just assume I never think he's going to play. So if he ever does play, I'll be surprised. But at this point, I don't even rely on him. I kind of just forget that he's even there. Just win with the guys that we have out. Like Chris said, it is frustrating because you can see the talent. The guy is talent, but they say the best ability is availability, and he certainly hasn't been available. He has 2 catches for no yards this year. He has as many yards as UI and Tainah does, Pat. He has as many touchdowns in his Giants career as the 3 of us have. So, talent's there. It's frustrating to see him sit on the sideline with the hamstring injury. I don't know what else to say. It's definitely been a frustrating situation. The only thing that came out of getting Kadarius Toney was the fact they got an extra first-round pick, and it ended up being either Kayvon Thibodeau or Evan Neal, however you want to look at it. So, I don't know. It'd be nice to get an extra weapon out there for Daniel Jones to throw to a big play guy, a guy that could take a 7-yard slant 70 yards at a house, but he's not there. So I don't know. We just got to keep
next man up.
Next man up is exactly it.
Exactly. And speaking of next man up, Barry Nanlau, who do you think is going to provide help this year at the receiver position? Barry, I think what they have is what we, they're going to roll with. I mean, they don't have cap space. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Odell's coming. I got to get Odell. You're not going to get Odell this year. Remember, Odell said that the Rams lowballed him. The Rams only have about $1 million more in cap space than the Giants. So can you imagine what kind of offer the Giants can make this year? I mean, they would have to literally wipe out their cap space. Now, could something happen next year? You never say never, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think this year the Giants are going to roll with what they have.
That's what it seems like. Maybe they'll make a small move at the deadline, but I don't see them bringing in anybody huge. Let's put it that way.
Well, I would love to see them get DJ Moore. That one I did work out.
I would love that.
I wrote an article about that over on Giants Country and said that's the trade they should make, and that works with the money, by the way.
Yeah, you're better with that than me. I would love for them to be able to do that because I think it accomplishes a lot of things. It gets him more acclimated to the scheme before next year. You get 8 or 9 games in the system. You start to develop chemistry with Daniel Jones, and you get an opportunity to get a better look at Daniel Jones. You get him a true number 1 wide receiver. But if they don't do something like that, I think, like you said, they're going to go with what they got. And I think as Giants fans, we got to hope that Darius Slayton gets back to his rookie form, and there's at least reason to believe that's possible because you've seen a lot of other players become much better than we thought they were. Dexter Lawrence being one of them with the improved coaching. So maybe Darius Slayton, given an opportunity, becomes a good wide receiver. I'm not saying he's going to be a number 1, but becomes a good wide receiver. Maybe when Wan'Dale Robinson gets out there, he starts to make a big difference. But if you ask me right now, they're more than likely going to go with the guys they got. I don't see them making like a huge dramatic move. They may make a small move here and there, but I don't see anything huge in season.
It's hard to because we don't have any cap space. And that's why what these guys have done is even more encouraging. The fact that they came in a bad situation with absolutely no flexibility with the cap. So the fact they really couldn't make any moves to bring in any talent outside of what they did in the draft, and they just had to make minor moves here and there, and they're making it work, is incredibly encouraging for what they can do going forward this year. And Pat, I want to ask you this because I talked to Chris about this before. When the Jets and Giants played in the preseason, I live in upstate New York, so CBS did not have the game because it's a Jets thing, I guess, or something. I don't know. So I couldn't watch the Jets and Giants. So I had to listen to it on WFAN. And I heard Howard Cross mention this, and I never thought about it, that Daniel Jones in the offense is getting up to the line of scrimmage with 18, 20 seconds to snap the ball. And in years previous, it seemed like we were getting up there with 6 seconds to snap the ball. So how much of a difference do you think that makes that he can go get up there and check off blocks or see where the blitz is coming from and have that pre-snap motion that he probably couldn't have when Joe Judge was there because he was hurrying to get the playoff, and that certainly made the execution much tougher.
Yeah, it's huge. From what I understand, the play calls are simpler. Some coaches give you like a War and Peace to recite when it comes to the play call, and then there are some guys that limit it to 5, about 5 words. So I think the Giants border on closer to simplifying it. So it's huge because you want to give yourself enough time to get up to the line, assess the situation, okay, make any checks or adjustments that you have to make. When you start rushing it, that's where you get your delay of game penalties. That's where you get guys, false starts and all kinds of, things go crazy. And if you notice, the penalties are down in those areas.
Yep.
So I think that kind of ties in together.
Yeah. I saw an interesting question. I think I don't think I answered. BadDog might have touched on it already. I see a lot of people asking about Mark Andrews, who I think is definitely the biggest weapon you got to worry about outside of course, Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And people brought up McKinney, Spine, Jackson. I would actually put McKinney on Andrews.
Yeah.
I would put McKinney on Andrews, and I would probably double Andrews. Like, I would do everything in my power to take him out of this football game and minimize him as a pass threat in this game. If Lamar Jackson's weakest point is throwing outside the numbers, everybody knows that. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. Not to say he's not capable of doing it, but you want to put the opposing quarterback in the worst situation you possibly can. And by doing that, by taking away Andrews, I think that takes away his best weapon, and it makes him do what he does the weakest, and that's throw outside the numbers. And they obviously need to spy Lamar Jackson. You got to be worried about his legs, but I think they'll spy him with somebody else. I think they're going to put McKinney on Andrews. I think they're going to double Andrews, take him out of the game. I think there's going to be a lot of multiple DB looks, 6 DBs out there, 5 DBs. Julian Love might be the guy that spies him. I don't know, Darnay Holmes. But they're going to have more speed out there than most weeks because obviously you have to account for Lamar Jackson as a runner.
Yeah, I mentioned it on Twitter. Mark Andrews has 32 catches and 4 touchdowns in 5 games. And again, there's an Oklahoma Sooner for you. So I know Mark Andrews very well. So I think he was, I don't know. I'm losing my mind. Pretty sure he was a Sooner, but he's a very good tight end. There's no question about it. And like you said, it's always good to have that safety net when you really can't throw the ball accurately outside the numbers. And nothing's better than having a great tight end, which... How good has Daniel Bellinger been for the New York Giants this year? I mean, he's been a very pleasant surprise. He's done everything they asked. 4th round pick. And this is where you make your money as a GM, is those 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks that come out there and produce, because they don't get a ton of money. And you're able to build around those guys when you have guys that are producing. Bellinger has good hands. He scored a few touchdowns this year. I think
good blocker too. Good blocker.
Yeah, he's a good blocker.
Yes.
And I think that the double reverse, I think that was a pass that was supposed to go to Daniel Jones, but it was covered. And he said, okay, I'm not throwing it. I'm taking it. And I don't know that for sure. But when I was watching, it looked like he had the option to throw it and said, it's not there. I'm just going to take it in myself. So I really like Daniel Bellinger. I think that he's certainly helped out the offense a lot. And as Chris said, you get, Wan'Dale Robinson back. I think that opens it up for everybody else, especially if we ever get Kadarius Toney, Kenny Galladay healthy. It should open everybody up. But, I love what we're doing offensively. I just like to see that we're improving every week. I think every week this offense has gotten better, and I think it's going to continue to get better in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, I want to get to some questions because these questions are starting to pile up, and I don't want people to not get the questions. So let's kick this one off with Yankee Nation. Who's going to be the biggest X factor in this game for all 3 of you? Also, on a side note, BadDog, our Yankees were crap today.
Yeah, well, that's bad defense. That bad defense will lose you games in the playoffs. That and unable to score runs outside of home runs. That's what we know what the Yankees are. We'll see what they do tomorrow night.
All right, X factor. Tainah, let's start with you.
Yeah. And by the way, and Troy already answered. I saw somebody ask if Bateman's going to play. He's not, which is even more of a reason to force Lamar Jackson to throw outside the numbers. He's going to be without his number 1 option in the passing game. Of course, Duvernay is obviously a big play threat too. He's got a lot of speed, and he's an X factor for them in the kick return game. He is a great kick returner, and that's something that the Giants have not been super strong with in special teams. So I don't want Graham Gano getting cute in this game. Kick it out of the end zone. Don't give that guy an option to return kicks here for 70, 80 yards and taking it to the house. I worry about Duvernay in that aspect as well. But my biggest X factor for the Giants in this game, that's a great question. I'm going to go on the defensive end because I'm much more worried about their offense than their defense. And not to say they definitely have an opportunistic defense. They lead the league in turnovers created. But I'm going to go on the defensive end. And my X factor, that's a good one.
That's a tough.
I'm gonna go with Julian Love.
Okay.
Because I think Julian Love is going to be the guy, if I had to guess, that is going to spy Lamar Jackson. That's what I'll go with. But just the safety play in general is the X factor for me in this game. Whether it be taking away Andrews or spying Lamar Jackson, I think that's the most important aspect, the most important positional group in this football game.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. The safeties are going to be key, not just, in spying Jackson, but just you figure one of them is going to probably be assigned to if they double up Mark Andrews to take him out. So that's, I think you're going to see a lot of, 5 and 6 defensive backs on the field. Yeah. Got to put speed out there. And somebody asked me if Landon Collins was going to play this week. I didn't get that impression that he was going to get called up. Dable was asked about that today, I think. And he said that, he's still getting acclimated and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So maybe you see Collins, I would say maybe at the earliest next week.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be this week unless Dable's got his poker face on.
I actually, now that you mentioned that, I saw it on Twitter. I forgot who asked it. One of your colleagues asked it. They asked him directly, and he said he doesn't expect to play this week.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think next week is going to be the go-to if they need him.
Yeah.
So that's a take it 1 week at a time. But Dog, who's your X factor? There you go.
The X-Man, of course.
The X-Man.
Like Chris mentioned,
Comes with props. I think, I love it.
What's that?
You come with props. I come with
props. He's my favorite. He's my favorite Giant. But like Chris said, I think that McKinney is probably going to be the guy that's going to have to take out Mark Andrews, and he is definitely in the passing game. I think he is Baltimore's biggest weapon. I don't think it's close, especially with Bateman being out. So I think McKinney being able to limit Mark Andrews, especially if they get into the red zone, which is where he's extremely dangerous. I think McKinney's job of trying to hold Andrews out of the end zone is going to be huge. And if we can keep him, out of the end zone, I think we've got a really good chance to win. So I'm going to go with McKinney as the X factor.
All right.
I'm going to throw in another name I was thinking about that maybe a lot of people won't think about. I'm going to go with like Jihad Ward. Because I think it's so important against Baltimore and against Lamar Jackson to seal off the edge, to not overcommit, to not overextend. Jihad Ward, of course, very familiar with him. He played in Baltimore, but I think the defensive linemen have to be really disciplined in this football game because if you overextend yourself, Lamar Jackson's off to the races. He's going for 30 yards on a run. So that's a really important aspect. You have to be very disciplined. We can't do what Calitro did a couple of weeks ago when he was way too aggressive and he filled the wrong gap, and then Pollard went for 50 yards. So we got to do a much better job in that aspect. So the defensive linemen have to be really, really diligent.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, here's an interesting question for you guys. This is from AJ. If we were 1-4, would you feel the same way about the coaching?
No.
No.
I'm going to be honest with you. No, but we're not 1-4. But if we were 1-4, that would mean that we lost to either the Panthers or the Bears, and we had no impressive wins on the year. We literally have beaten 2 playoff teams. We've beaten the Packers and we've beaten the Titans. So no, of course I wouldn't feel the same way. Obviously, when you win 4 out of 5, you're going to feel much differently than if you won 1 out of 5. But I would probably still feel that it was better than it was last year.
Right.
Well, hold up for a second, though. Yes, if they were 1-4, it means they would have lost to they almost lost to the Titans.
They did.
Bullock makes that kick, and they're not 4-1. I know it's a what if, and it's a matter of how the ball bounces. So, Carolina they had to beat. Dallas they almost beat. I don't know. I would look at each situation why they lost. Was it because they got out coached? If they got out coached, I would probably
still feel good about the coaching, but I wouldn't be as high as I am now.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Fair enough. Definitely. So I don't know. I thought that was an interesting.
Like Chris said, I think that we would feel it was still better. Even in the preseason when they were playing, I remember somebody in the chat just saying it feels good to have a competent coaching company. You could almost tell that they have an idea. And I think you mentioned that earlier, Pat. They have plans. They have a C plan and a D plan. They have if this doesn't happen, we got this backup plan. And if that happens, we got this. And it seems like they're prepared for every situation. If they were 1-4, I still would feel better about the coaching going forward and just say, listen, we don't have the talent. And then that's really what it is. But we're 4-1, and we still have, you look at, like I said, you look at the Cowboys roster, you look at the Eagles roster, you look at those on paper, and you say, do we really have the same talent as those teams? And anybody outside of the Giants can say, no, that's not even close. But you know what? They don't play the games on paper. They play it on the field.
Yep.
And our coaching staff finds a way to get these guys prepared and execute every week. Joe Judge talked about execution all the time. They just executed themselves. Now, this year, it's much different. So, yeah, probably feel different, but not – we wouldn't be as happy.
Right.
That really speaks to the coaching, though, when you really think about it. When you think about the Eagles roster, and let's take the quarterback out of it, because I think the quarterback could be influenced based off the situation that he's in. So let's take that out of it. But if you look at all the other positional groups between the Giants and the Eagles, running backs, Giants, and outside of that, you could argue every other position. If you look at the offensive line as a whole, it goes to the Eagles. Tight end certainly goes to the Eagles, as much as I like Bellinger. Wide receiver certainly goes to the Eagles. Defensive line, we're good, but they're really good too. At best, it's a wash. Their secondary is much better than ours on paper. They're better everywhere. So, but we are still 4-1, and that just goes to show you just how good of a job the coaching staff has done.
Yeah, Philadelphia is going to get a test Sunday.
Yeah, they are. They're going to get a big test with the Cowboys, and if they can come through it, then I'll believe for real that they're for real. So, all right, here's a fun one for you guys from Thrill Collins. It presented the opportunity to work on the Giants beat. Would you take it and join Patty?
I'll start, I guess. I don't know if I would ever do it. Well, yeah, I probably would, but I don't know if I would do it full time, but I would certainly, if I had access to be able to interview the players and show up, at when I wanted to. Yeah, why wouldn't I? That'd be great content to be able to, go to the facility and be able to talk to the players, interview the players. They'd probably hate me when I came back on my YouTube channel and some of the players I wouldn't speak very nicely about, because I give my honest opinion. Some of them probably wouldn't be too fond of me, but I think it'd be awesome to get some of the access that you guys have.
Yeah, I don't think any. You don't think they'd like you? They really wouldn't like.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. But yeah, obviously, I have a situation. I mean, I'm upstate, so it'd be much more difficult for me. And I have a 5-year-old son, work a full-time job. It'd obviously be very difficult. If situation was different and I was half the age I am now, and I was 23 again and single, absolutely, I would love to do that. That'd be great. But like, you know what Chris said, that the players probably wouldn't think too highly. They don't like the media anyway a lot of times, because the media has to ask tough questions. That's why it's a tough place to play. It's not that the media is trying to be mean, but they're not afraid to ask really tough questions. So,
yeah, but I mean, first off, I think a lot of you don't realize just how many hours I put into this. I mean, I really don't get a day off. I mean, I get a half a day off on Saturday, but I'm working literally from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed on, if it's not the site, on the podcast, if it's not, working on it on an interview or an analysis. So I put a lot of hours in, guys. Yeah. I mean, a lot.
Yeah, I know you do. You write tons of articles. You're on here all the time. You're at the facility.
And
I'll tell you what I'm thinking as we're talking. To answer your question fully, if you asked me, Chris, what's your preference? Would you rather be a beat reporter, or would you rather be an on-air personality, whether it be TV or radio? I would prefer the on-air personality. I would prefer the Francesa. Not that I'm comparing myself to them, but that type of job where I could maybe interview these players, but I don't have to show up to the facility and be a beat reporter. That would be my preference.
Right. And it's tough. And you mentioned, the players hate the media. It's not really true.
They would hate me on there too. Trust me.
It's not really true. I mean, look, yes, I don't think they like some of the questions that are asked, but it's nothing personal. Like I can sit here and tell you, with most guys, I have a very good working relationship with most of the players. I can go up to them and make small talk, or I can say, hey, let's talk about football and get candid answers, be it on or off the record. So it's all in how you approach the job.
Right.
Now, some people come in and they want to be jerks. All right. Some people come in and they're respectful and they want to do the job right. So it's a matter of style, but it's a very interesting dynamic that goes on behind the scenes. And sometimes, I always used to call it like one big dysfunctional extended family. I think back to to 2007, which, as you guys probably know, was my favorite year on the beat. And we were all like one big family in a way, albeit we were the ugly cousins, if you will. And it's just, I can't explain it, but it's just such a, there's that collaboration. There's guys that, hey, how you doing? And they remember little things, about you, oh, how you had COVID, how are you feeling? Or, oh, your dog, 1 year anniversary, if your dog's passing, how you holding up? Little things like that, and it's the human element that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. I think people think we just go in there, and I call it spearing because, and I teach young reporters all the time, never just take your microphone and zam it right into somebody's face, because that's called spearing.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them, look, just approach and kind of hold the microphone underneath somebody's chin. You'll pick up what they're going to say, and you're also not threatening them. It's a lot of body language and psychology involved, and if you know how to work it, you can build up some good relationships, some sincere relationships with these players, and it could be a beautiful thing. I mean, when guys remember me from years later, and they're like, I remember you. I'm like, you do? So I'm like, I know I'm doing something right.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny because it kind of happens on YouTube as well. Like, there's some of my subscribers be like, from something I said 3 years ago, I'm like, how do you remember that? Like, how do you know that happened? Or, they know my son's birthday or whatever. Just, it is amazing how they do remember stuff. Now, I didn't get to talk to players. I mean, when they trained up here in Albany from 96 to 2012, I went there all the time. I took 3 weeks off in the summer and I just went up there and hung out. And it was definitely interesting the way some of the players reacted to the fans, the media, whatever, when they were up there as opposed to others. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine how difficult your job is. I'm a guy on YouTube that just sits here and shoots from the hip. I can't imagine the hours of preparation in the questions, where you guys come up with the questions or how you phrase the questions and all this other stuff. So, I just sit there and just say, yep, I'm glad I don't have to do that. I'm glad I can just be on here and just, I can say whatever I want. I ain't got to worry about Kadarius Toney doing anything but blocking me on Twitter. That's really all I got to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. A lot of people think it's easy and they're like, oh, I'd love to be your assistant and stuff like that. No, you really wouldn't, because you wouldn't be able to put up with the hours that I put up with. I mean, you'd have to be really dedicated. And I just find that a lot of people aren't willing to make that sacrifice. Depends on how bad you want it, I guess. But, look, it's not for everybody. And some people, like you said, you guys would be great on-air personalities. You got the personality. I mean, I grew up, if you will, as a writer. I'm not really an on-air personality. I'm kind of learning as I go along, even to this day. So to each his own, I suppose. But let's get to some football questions here. Edward Squires asks, do you think the defense needs to score this week to help our offense out a little bit?
No.
Can't hurt, but I wouldn't say has to.
Yeah, I don't think we need a defensive touchdown to win this game. I mean, obviously it would help. It's going to help on any week. But no, I look at this game as a game where I do think we're going to be able to move the ball against them. I really believe that. I think we're going to be able to run. I think we have to control the clock. That's what I'll say. I think we need to control the clock. And I think this game is going to be more in our defense than our offense. I really believe that. I think we'll be able to I'm not saying we're going to put up 30 points, but I think we'll be able to move the ball enough to be able to sustain drives, pick up third downs. The defense is what I worry about. We can't let up huge plays to Lamar Jackson. We have to make them earn their points. They're going to get inside the 20. We have to hold strong when they get there. We've been really good in the red zone. That's another area where they've struggled. They're 27th in the NFL in red zone defense. So hopefully the Giants can capitalize when they get there. But I think it's going to be more in the defense, not allowing big plays, not letting Lamar Jackson shred you with his legs. I think we'll be able to control the clock, though. I really do. I think the offense is going to play pretty well as long as we don't fall behind too much. If we fall behind by 14 points, 17 points, then things could get ugly on both sides of the ball, because then they're really going to be able to probably wear us down with that ground attack, right? If they get out to a 14 or 17-point lead. So we got to keep it relatively close. I don't view this as a game. Like I said earlier, even though they've blown leads this year, I don't view this as a game. If we're down 10 points at the half, where I'm going to be confident that we're going to be able to come back. We got to keep this game relatively close. But if we do, I think our offense could have a pretty good game on Sunday. It's more actually more so the defense I worry about this week.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I feel like the game plan is the same that I thought we would beat Green Bay with. Sometimes the best defense is having a good offense. You want to stop Lamar Jackson, keep your offense out on the field the way we did in the second half against Green Bay, where Aaron Rodgers, like you said, Chris, the second possession came with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. That is the best way to stop Lamar Jackson, is by keeping him on the sideline, watching our offense move the ball. And the fact that Baltimore's allowed 5 yards a tote, I think it certainly can benefit us if we're able to run the ball, convert third downs, which is something we've done much better this year, especially in Green Bay, against Green Bay. We were able to convert a lot of big third downs on a couple of those touchdown drives. So if we're able to do that and have 6-8 minute drives and finish with 7 points instead of 3, we got a really good chance. I can certainly tell you this: Friday night, 8:30. I am extremely confident we can beat Baltimore. Way more confident than I would have been September 11th when we started the season. That I can tell you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, folks, we got to take one more quick commercial break. Get those questions in. We'll continue to answer as many as we can on the show. So give us, we'll be back in about 30 seconds. Hey, Giant fans, BetOnline is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game, both for college and NFL. And BetOnline doesn't stop there. It's your continued source for all your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including the MLB playoffs, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head on over today to BetOnline or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the games start. All right, everybody, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast live stream with the Tainah, the dog, and Traina.
You're getting so good with those commercials. You get better every week.
You know how many takes it takes me to do them?
How many?
At least 2.
That,
and the
2?
funny thing is,
I was going to say 2's not bad.
You know how many times I got to do my intro? What is going on? Sometimes I screw that up. That'll take me at least 3 or 4 takes. That's good.
The funny thing, here's the funny thing, guys. I have a script that I read off of. I hold the script like underneath my camera, and this is why I'm wearing glasses, so I can see the darn thing. Before I couldn't see it, and I still screw it up. So, but I try and do my best for the advertisers because, I appreciate them, supporting the podcast and, just as I appreciate those who tune in, and I try to do my best for them. But and I tend to be a perfectionist. If I don't like the first take, I'll do it again and I'll do it again until I get it to where I think it's good enough for the advertisers, because that's the least I could do, right?
I'm the same way. I haven't done it in a long time, but I think it might have been a year ago. I kept some of my outtakes and just did a video of that where, I messed up a bunch of times. I tripped over saying my name. I said the wrong thing. I'm like, what am I talking about? I draw a blank, just stare at the camera. It was pretty funny, but I'm going to have to do that again, because there is definitely a lot of messing up, and I'm like, I got to do that again. Oh my God. Or whatever. I hate when I get to 8 minutes in and I start screwing up. I got to do that whole thing over again.
I could never publish my outtakes because, I shouldn't admit this, but when I screw up, I cuss.
So do I.
I do too. Sometimes I cuss at my dog. Sometimes I cuss at my dog. I should get that on the boot.
I don't even need to screw up the cuss. So what's the difference?
Neo, shut the blank up.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do a video.
All right.
Rubber knuckles.
All right, guys, let's get some more questions in here. Survivor Sam wants to know, does Wink's knowledge of the Ravens players give us an advantage, or does the Ravens knowledge of Wink's schemes give the Ravens the advantage there? We talked about this a little earlier. I think, Dog, you brought this up. The Ravens might know Wink, but they don't know the Giants personnel, whereas Wink knows the Ravens personnel. So I would think advantage Giants in that case.
Yeah, he knows Harbaugh. He knows what they like to do. He knows the line. He knows the players. Not all of them, obviously, but most of them. Whereas, they might know Wink, but they don't know the Giants. So they don't know Dable. I mean, they didn't, he had nothing to do with Baltimore. So they don't know Kafka. So we'll see. But I think advantage Giants.
Yeah. So just so I know the exact specifics of the question is Lamar more at an advantage because he knows Wink, or is Wink
are the Ravens more?
Just more as a team?
Yeah.
I think it's Wink. I think it's advantage Wink. I think it's advantage Wink. And I think the main thing that I'm focused on with Wink is Lamar. He's their offense. He's their weapon. And yeah, I think he has a much bigger advantage than Lamar does because, and I don't know if he's going to be successful or not. But Lamar could think he knows what Wink's going to do. Wink changes it up every week with the types of blitzes that he sends. So there's no way he's going to know exactly what he's going to do going into this game. Wink has practiced against this guy for 4 years straight as a defensive coordinator. He knows his tendencies. He knows what his weaknesses are. So I definitely think Wink has a stronger advantage than Lamar does going into this game. Whether or not he's successful, that remains to be seen. You could know everything. If a player is great, and he's going to find ways to overcome it. But I definitely think Wink has more of an advantage than Lamar does when it comes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think it was Papa Guzzo, who I haven't put it up on the screen. Actually, he compliments me on my Eli Manning interview, which if you didn't see it, folks, do check it out. You will love it. Eli was so good. And that show, I think, was what, on Wednesday?
Yeah.
But I think Papa Guzzo, you asked me about certain guys, if they were playing. So Leo Williams, I think he's going to play. I don't think Azeez Ojulari is going to be ready this week. Wandale, I do think is going to play. Who else I'm trying to remember who else you asked me about. I don't have the injury report in front of me, but
I could pull it up.
Yeah, I would have. I wonder if I have it on my phone.
Signore Guzzo, I did not shave today, so I know you didn't. But I will take care of that this weekend, I promise. Papa Guzzo always gives me a hard time when I don't shave. He's Italian, he gets it, he understands.
I'm adopting Papa Guzzo. It's that simple.
I got it right here, by the way, the injury report. So it's Leonard Williams, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tanner Hudson are questionable.
I think Hudson, I mean, unless Hudson has, like COVID or something. I mean, I don't know what he has. I'm not saying he has COVID, but he's listed as illness. So
that's what Jordan has. And then Azeez is doubtful. I doubt he plays. And Tony Golladay, Jason Pinnock, Tony Jefferson, Cordell Flott out. So I'm gonna assume. I think this is gonna be the week we see Leo back, and I think it's gonna be the week we see Wan'Dale back. So I'm really excited. I'm so excited. Even though we've seen them play together for like 3 straight years, we haven't really seen them play together in this defense.
Right.
With Dexter Lawrence playing at as high as a level as he's been playing since Leonard Williams went out. I am so excited to see a healthy Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence playing next to each other.
Dexter has been balling. And you know what's amazing? I've spoken a lot to Dexter, and just to see the growth and maturity in him from when he was a rookie and he first came in. I'm not kidding. When he first came in, it was almost like he was scared of his own shadow. And now he's so confident in what he's doing. And just, you could see that leadership and how he has matured as not only as a football player, but as a person. And that's really, for me, one of the best aspects of my job is to watch these guys come in as, basically kids, and they grow into, they grow up. And it's just rewarding to see how some of them just mature and from kids into fathers and husbands and team leaders, captains, what have you, or Pro Bowlers. It's amazing. It's very rewarding for me to see it, because it's like you're there. You see it behind the scenes, and then you also see it on the field, and it's just.
Let me ask you. I'm thinking as you're talking, we've talked about Andrew Thomas, all of us before, that we think we should extend him at the end of the year because the market goes up. You know, he's a long-term piece. Do you extend Dexter Lawrence if he continues to play at this level?
I thought about that.
I know he's on the 5th-year option, but
he's on the 5th-year option.
But if you identify him as a long-term piece, do you do it now?
I don't know if they, I haven't worked the numbers. And spoiler alert, I'm going to work the numbers over the bye week, and I'm going to probably work numbers for Daniel and Saquon and Andrew, and I'm going to see what we could do with Dexter and see what that leaves them with, because you also got to leave money for the draft class, as you know. But they're also going to probably get rid of Kenny Galladay's contract. So that's going to open things up. So I have to play around with the numbers. I would say with Dexter, excuse me. Yeah. But here's the other thing. Leo, I think next year is the last year of Leo's contract. So all the more reason why maybe you want to get one of them done next year, and then the following year, get the other one done, if you know what I mean. So otherwise, if you have to choose between one or the other,
I hate to do that.
I don't think I'd want to see that scenario.
I don't think we could let Dexter go, though. He's so young. And he's just starting to hit his stride. And I don't think this is a fluke. I think he's here to stay. I think he's going to be really good.
We've done that with a couple of people. Joseph was one of them. Dalvin Tomlinson was one of them. Like, we got rid of those guys, and they ended up becoming really good players. So hopefully we don't allow that to happen with Dex Lawrence. But Pat, there's that word again. You mentioned confidence. I swear. Again, when people talk about stats, I'm like, they don't always tell the whole story, man. They just don't. Confidence isn't intangible. And it doesn't need to be in football. Anything you do in life, if you're confident when you're doing it, you're just naturally going to do it better. But if you're sitting there doubting yourself and hesitating, and am I going to get this right? Am I going to screw this up? You're never going to achieve the same results as when you're like, I know I got this. I know I can do this. It's way different. And again, I believe that goes to the coaching staff, because we've seen Dexter Lawrence. We know that he had the talent, but he certainly hasn't played like this. Why? Why hasn't he played like this? It's not like Leonard Williams hasn't even been healthy and he's playing like this. So it's a first-year defense that he's under. It's not like he knows the scheme, or he learned the scheme after 2 years. So I think that has a lot to do with it. The confidence level these guys have is, I swear, it goes back to coaching, which is why
Absolutely.
I'm the coaching staff.
Absolutely. Coaching. Look, there's a reason why Dable's being talked about as potential coach of the year, but really the entire staff, it's not like, I'll be the first to admit, I thought, okay, Joe Judge put together a good staff, but in retrospect, it was all his buddies. And who was going to stand up to him and say, hey, Joe, this isn't working. Maybe we should try this.
Right.
You don't have what Dable has done is he's created this sense of ownership. And when somebody gives you a piece of ownership in a program, you're going to do your best to make sure that program doesn't fail. Whereas if you're just a yes man, or somebody who takes orders, you're going to be like, what do I care? You're going to fail, not me, because I'm just following marching orders. So we talk about coaching, but there's also the psychological aspect of it, having confidence in the players to pick up that 1 yard on third or down or 4th and 1, having confidence in the players to make a play when a play needs to be made, to make the 2-point conversion, to the coaches to stand up and say, hey, this isn't working. We're not getting off to a fast enough start. So why don't we try this? That's a big, big X factor, and something that I don't think is talked about a lot when we're talking about this team.
Definitely. And look, just look at, Mark Colombo. Obviously, he didn't agree with some things Joe Judge did. What happened? Colombo was gone. So it's not like these guys, maybe if Jason Garrett did not like what he said, or, they're Patrick Graham, they didn't like it. They were sitting there going, well, I don't want to oppose him, because if I oppose him, I'm going to lose my job. So, like I said, it's just a big difference. Like I said, I'll take the football mind over the Ivy League mind when it comes to winning football games. These guys have good football minds, good football IQ, and it's showing in the way the players perform week in and week out.
I'm going to tell you what, though, and I'm not worried about it, because I know Dable's a smart guy, and I know Shane's a smart guy. We're not keeping the staff together for very long.
Yeah. Do you think Wink's ever going to be?
I think Kafka's going to get a job.
I think that too. Somebody
not after this year. No. I don't think.
Maybe the following year, but I think he's going to get it soon. I think Kafka's going to get a job eventually.
You see Daniel Jones become a top tier quarterback, or like a top half of the league quarterback, and Kafka had a big part in that. Then I definitely think it'll be like, oh, look at what he did for the Giants offense. The Giants offense couldn't get out of their own way. The Giants offense was averaging 12 points or 13 points a game. All of a sudden, Kafka gets there, and in the second year, they're averaging 26 points a game or something, whatever. But, he's the one I worry about, because he's a young, innovative football mind. So,
and traditionally in today's NFL, when it comes to head coaches, you're looking for more of an offensive-minded head coach.
Right, absolutely. All right. Amazing Guy wants to know, will most of the injured guys return after the bye week? I think it's going to depend on a couple of things. A, where they are, and B, if they have roster openings. All right. So, for example, let's take Ellerson Smith. If everybody's healthy, if Azeez Ojulari is healthy after the bye, and you got Thibodeau and you got Jihad Ward and O'Shane Zimenez, who are you going to bump to add Ellerson Smith? So it becomes a numbers game. So that could factor in. Same thing with Rodarius Williams at cornerback. He's been on IR. Nick Gates, I think this is his second week in that 21-day window, so we'll see where he's at. Who else? Matt Parrott, I'm not so sure if he's going to be back or not. So it really depends. I do know Shane Lemieux, he's making progress. So guys are making progress. But as far as who's going to be back after the bye, that's tough to determine. And let's not forget, you could also, I know Dog took a break here, but we got to talk about the trade deadline coming up. And a lot of people are like, well, who are they going to, who could they realistically trade?
Mhm.
Here's a crazy, crazy idea. And no, I'm not going to say trade Saquon.
No,
that's
it's not going to happen. I don't think. Not at this point.
Here's a crazy idea. All right. What if Ellerson Smith is ready to go and a team needs a pass rusher and the Giants maybe look to move Zimenez, who's in the final year of his contract, to another team? Could you see that happening?
I suppose it's possible. Somebody brought up a really good name, by the way, that I haven't talked enough about that deserves a lot more credit on this coaching staff that I don't want to forget. Andre Patterson.
Yes, the D-line coach.
Because you're thinking about the job that Dexter Lawrence has had. He had that reputation in Minnesota with the Vikings. They always had those really good interior defensive lines. And Jihad War. I forgot who it was. Somebody came here to play with him this year. I can't remember who it was on the defensive line.
I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
It was a Viking player, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Viking player. And he needs to be talked about because he had that reputation in Minnesota because they've gotten a ton out of their defensive linemen there.
Well,
and
Brian Cox, too, remember, because Patterson was he missed most of the summer with a health issue. So you got to throw Brian Cox in there as well.
Yeah. But he deserves to get a lot more mention than he has because he's always had that reputation as a very good defensive line coach. And you look at what Dexter Lawrence is doing now, he probably has something to do with that. But in terms of what you asked about potentially being, I mean, listen, I don't know what we're going to do at the deadline. We may just stand pat. Maybe we make an addition. I wouldn't be shocked if we make an addition. But like you said, we don't have a lot of money. But if they could find a way to make it work. And the guy's a young player, and it's not just for this year, I could see us make an addition. But I don't think we're going to do anything drastic. I don't think we're selling Saquon Barkley. I really don't. I know there's a lot of fans that are like, "Oh, you should trade him for a first-round pick." I don't think it's going to happen. The team's playing really well, and I think they're going to play out the year with him on the roster.
You have to keep your core players intact, and I think Barkley has proven he's a core player.
Yeah.
So why would you want to trade him? If you trade him now, you get some cap relief. It's not a lot at this point, though. So I don't see that being the case. I mean, I'd be stunned if that were to happen. So
I also think Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones have a really good rapport with one another, and I think that they feed off of one another. Chris has mentioned this when we stream together a lot. Daniel Jones really has never had a healthy Saquon Barkley. I mean, his rookie season, his first game, Barkley ended up with a high ankle sprain against Tampa. Then he came back, and he did have the good game against Washington. But I think Daniel Jones did start that game. So, I mean,
he had a couple of games rookie year. He tears his ACL the next year, the game 2, and he wasn't himself all of last year.
Yeah, and he was hurt last year because he had that freak injury where he stepped on the defensive back of the Cowboys and twisted his ankle there. So, this is the first time that Daniel Jones has really been able to play with the explosive Saquon Barkley that we saw in 2018. And with Daniel Jones' mobility, the rolling pockets, the RPOs, it certainly helped Daniel Jones. It's given the Giants that extra weapon in the back, that extra thing for a defender to think about. And when you have a Saquon Barkley, which is why play action pass can be extremely effective when you run the ball, since a linebacker is going to cheat up and all of a sudden you got the tight end like a Bellinger behind him. For years and years, us older fans that grew up in the 80s will remember this. The tight end down the seam. That's why Bavaro was such a beast. Even when we had Martellus Bennett, the tight end down the seam, guys like Larry Donnell, for crying out loud, of course, Shockey, but we really haven't seen the tight end involved. We had Evan Ingram. He was drafted, at Ole Miss in the first round because he ran a 4.40. But was he really a good tight end? No, he ran fast. He was athletic. It doesn't make you a good football player. It makes you a good athlete. Daniel Bellinger is not killing the combine, but he's a good football player. Give me football players over athletes if I want to win football games. And the team's gelling really well together. You'd hate to see them break it up.
Yeah.
If we were 1-4,
different story. Yeah.
Different story. Absolutely different story. All right. Speaking of breaking things up, John Koff, excuse me. Did you guys see what he's referring to Kimberly Martin on ESPN was saying we should be bad for winning in the future when we are winning now.
Yeah.
You know what, guys? I know Kim Martin, sweet young lady. very good reporter. I remember her from when she, was on the beat a little bit. I don't agree with her take. I don't believe in tanking. I think any team that tanks on purpose, you just don't do that. It's an insult to the people in the locker room. It is an insult to the fans. It's an insult to everybody who invests in that team.
Right.
You can still get a decent draft pick if you accumulate draft picks and you manipulate and move up and down the board,
Look at the Eagles.
which is what I think Joe Shane is going to try and do. I mean, he's going to get a comp pick, I think 2 comp picks next year for guys that they lost.
I think it's a 5th and a 7th, Evan Ingram and
So
somebody
you're
else.
going to have some extra pieces. And then, if, like I said, he moves somebody now, or maybe he waits to the offseason to move somebody, he'll probably get some more pick. So that's how you move around. To tank, no, I'm sorry. That's just, I can't buy into that.
Yeah.
Look at the way the Eagles. I was just gonna say, look at the way the Eagles have manipulated the draft. I mean, they have New Orleans' pick. New Orleans is not a good team, and the Eagles have a great team, and they may end up with another top 10 draft pick. So, and they were able to accumulate draft picks this year. Yeah, they gave up their first round pick this year to get AJ Brown, who was better than any receiver, but they were going to get at 18, and then they trade back and they get a top 10 pick. The other thing that they insult, Pat, is not just the players and the fans and the coaches. I mean, these are professional players. You're really going to tell a professional player go down there and lay down? It insults the integrity of the game.
Yep.
That's what it insults more than anything else. So yeah, if you're 2-12,
different story.
And you're playing your backups, okay. But at the beginning in October, we're talking about a 4-1 team.
That's what makes it. That's what makes it the worst. If we were 1-4, I still wouldn't agree with her take, but I'd be like, okay, it makes a little bit more sense. Right. And in today's day and age, as a male content creator, you're a little bit nervous coming out and saying, that's a horrible take, but it's the truth. It's a horrible, horrible take, and I'm all for women advancing in the sports world, and I'm sure she's a great reporter, but that take was
bad.
Horrific.
I don't agree with it.
I've had a few horrific takes, so we all have.
Yeah, but to say
to
say that a 4-1 football team should go out there and lose, and think about the team that won the Super Bowl in 2007 and 2008 Super Bowl, 2007 regular season. Not that I'm comparing the two. Obviously, that team had more talent. They had a great offensive line, a great defensive line, and they gelled throughout the course of the year. But if people had her mindset, she would have said the same thing about that team. Mm-hmm. That team in that year, Eli Manning still was not a developed quarterback. He was still struggling. The defense was horrendous the first 2 weeks. I think they gave up 80 points in the first 2 games combined, and people were saying Steve Spagnuolo didn't know what he was doing, and they were this close to being 0-3 against Washington. Yes. They had the goal line stand. If people had that mindset, she would have been calling for that team to tank. Not that I'm saying this team's going to win a Super Bowl, but you don't give up on a season when a team is 4-1, and we're not talking about Mickey Mouse wins either. We're talking about beating the 2 number 1 seeds from last year's playoffs on the road.
They're getting better every week. You can see the Giants are getting better every week.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. Why? This is what I don't understand. Why are we tanking to get a better draft pick? You want a better draft pick so you can win in the future. Well, the future is now. We're winning games now. What message are you sending as a new head coach? Guys, I want to come in and I want to lose as many as possible because I don't believe in any of you. I want to get the best draft picks possible, and we're going to get rid of you guys. You're just here to lose games, and then whatever happens to you. I don't really care. I want to get better draft picks for the future. That is a bad take. That is a really bad take.
It is.
It's just, I don't know what she was thinking there, but like I said, we all have bad takes. I've had plenty of them. There's plenty more to come.
We all have that. And because it's a national reporter, it's drawing a lot of attention. So I get it, but I don't agree with it, like I said, I have utmost respect for Kim. I know her from her days when she was on the Giants beat, and I think the world of her. She's a sweetheart of a young lady. But that take,
The other thing is we've been losing for so many years. We're sick of losing. I want to win. I don't want to hear we got to tank. We've tanked enough. Chris, you might have mentioned this on Twitter.
Tanking was last year.
We have picked 4th, 6th.
Yep.
7th, 5th.
For her theory,
we need.
Her basic theory was if you pick early, that gives you the best chance to win. This isn't the NBA. This isn't the NBA,
right?
Where one player, and I understand if you find the next Aaron Rodgers, of course. but those guys are so few and far between. The chance of hitting on a quarterback like that, regardless where you're picking, are so slim. So to suggest that, the best option for this team is to lose and get the highest draft pick possible, we've been picking as high as we possibly can.
Yep.
We pick second, we pick fourth, we pick sixth, we pick seventh, we pick fifth. We've had every number known to man, and this team has struggled all along the way.
Right.
So no,
Exactly.
eventually you have to start building a winning culture.
Right.
And the only advantage, as I see it, to picking early for me is that we get done early and I don't have to stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So,
Well, you're selfish from your perspective.
Yes, but at the flip
Yeah.
side, would I trade it for a winning record? I've said this many, many times. It is so much easier and more fun to cover a winning team than it is a losing team. I know fans out there think, the New York media, they can't wait to see the Giants stumble and fall. Not this member of the media. I want to see wins.
Yeah.
My life becomes easier. I'm less stress. I sleep better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel. I can't.
Chris and
speak
I
for
are finding
everybody.
this out about YouTube because Chris and I have been working together since 2018, and they haven't been over 500 one game until this year. And I would always finish the show, our show, with just wait till we're good. How much? Because we had fun, even when it was obviously not as fun, but we still had fun talking about the Giants. But it's like you said, Pat, it's so much more fun when you're winning. It's just more fun to not be disrespected and people look at here's a speed bump. This is just a bye week. This is a scrimmage. And that's what it's been for the last 5 years. People look at us and say, the Giants, the Giants. Not anymore. Now like, wow, the Giants. Well, better be prepared for them.
And here's a good point by Gravity Crush. How do you evaluate your team and help your players grow if you tank? You don't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't. This is what it's all about. Look, Joe Shane came in here, I want to say mid-January. Brian Dable came in at the end of January. Most teams who start their off seasons that early, like the Giants did, they would have been 4 weeks already into the evaluation period. So these guys, not only did they have to assemble staffs, all right, which took about a month and a half. Then they were off to the combine. They had the scouting. So they really didn't have the time to sit down and, they evaluated guys, don't get me wrong, but not as thorough of a job as if they had already been in place and everything had been settled. So to me, this year is all about evaluating. Shane's taking a look and saying, okay, here's what a healthy Saquon can do for a healthy Daniel. Here's what a healthy Leo and a healthy Dexter can do. And he's in his head saying, okay, where are the holes on this team? Where do I need to spend whatever salary cap money I have for next year to fix this team? We can agree receiver. We can agree probably defensive back, cornerback specifically.
Center.
We can agree on that. Probably continue to beef up that offensive line.
Yeah, inside
so this is an
linebacker.
evaluation period. If you start tanking, then you're not going to be able to do a thorough job with evaluating, which, again, that's a great point by Gravity Crush, in my opinion.
Again, when it comes to free agency, who's going to want to sign on with the teams like we want to lose?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What free agent goes, the Giants are tanking on purpose. Yeah, I want to sign over there.
I'll tell you a sign here, BadDog. I'll tell you a sign here. A wide receiver with a broken hip who has 0 touchdowns in 2 years. You pay $18 million a year. That guy will sign here. That's what you'll end up with.
Right. And that's not helping anybody. That's not helping us. So those are not the players you want. Those are not winning ball players. Winning builds culture, man. I'll say that till I'm blue in the face. Till I'm as blue in the face as my hat. I've said that since the beginning of the year. And Dave Gettleman always talked about the culture. Well, winning is what builds culture.
And the other thing I've been hearing this week, and not that a ton of people have been saying it, but some people have been asking me on Twitter, Chris, are you worried that now we're going to have to start paying these guys? That we're going to have to pay Dexter Lawrence? We may have to pay Saquon Barkley. I said, hell no, I'm not worried.
No.
That's what the best teams do.
Mm-hmm.
They keep their draft picks in-house. What the worst teams do is what the New York Giants have been doing. They go outside the organization and they pay top dollar for guys that people didn't want with their organization anymore, whether it be Nate Solder, Kenny Golladay. So, no, you want to pay Dexter Lawrence. You want him to be worth that salary. You want to pay Saquon Barkley. That's what the best teams do. They keep their best players in-house.
Right. Absolutely. And the cap's going to keep going up.
Mm-hmm.
Next year is when the new TV money kicks in. They're going to have a healthy cap situation. Now, are they going to have to probably swallow some with Galladay's contract? Probably. But it's going to be a lot better than it is this year. This year is just, I saw it coming when Gettleman was doing what he was doing, and it's ironic because he did everything he said he would never do, which is to mortgage the future, spend on guys who were injured, everything he said he wasn't going to do, and it was just shortcuts never work out.
That's right.
I think back to the Eagle Dream Team. Remember when they spent a ton of money on the Dream Team? The Giants did it in 2014. They did it again in 2016. And granted, they won. They had a winning record, made it to the playoffs, but it wasn't sustainable.
Right.
That's not how you build a football team. And Joe Shane has said, you draft well, you develop your talent, and then you retain your talent. It's like any other business, folks, any other business in America. You hire talent, the right talent for your team, you develop it, and you retain it. That's how top businesses succeed.
Yeah,
not
that's
through
why
turnover.
That's why the best teams like Baltimore, Baltimore is always a playoff contender. They're always one of the better teams, and they still have always one of the best drafts in the NFL. And that's why they consistently stay on top, because they can find talent and they're able to keep talent. And then when they can't keep it all, they find a way to replace it. You build your team through the draft. That is the way teams are built. And then, yes, when you can bring in an extra piece here and there to fill a hole, that's ideal. You can't just keep bringing all these pieces in and trying to mesh them together. And then, like you said, Pat, it's not sustainable. And you can't hold on to it all. So the other thing Gettleman did, and this was his ticket out of town. Chris and I talk about it all the time. I'm going to fix the offensive line.
Yeah.
He had 6 first-round picks. He drafted 1. The guy's name's Andrew Thomas. Don't know if you heard him, Giants fans. He's pretty good. So maybe if Gettleman actually stuck to his plan there and did build the offensive line, he might still have a job here.
One thing I'm going to say about Gettleman, and I'm not defending Gettleman. Gettleman absolutely deserved to be fired. He was a complete disaster last year with free agency, with Golladay and Rudolph and everything else. And, it was horrible. But Gettleman's got to be sitting back right now in his chair, and he's got to be smiling a bit, because you look at this team right now, and he's saying to himself, imagine if I had Dable as my head coach, because right now Dexter Lawrence is arguably the best interior defensive lineman in football through 5 weeks. Saquon Barkley is arguably the best playmaker in football through 5 weeks. And Andrew Thomas is the best left tackle in football through 5 weeks. So
Gettleman picks.
And it really goes to show you how important coaching is.
Yes, it is.
Julian Love looks really good too. Darren Slayton looked good last week.
Yeah. McKinney always looks good.
McKinney always looks good. So it really goes to show you how important coaching is.
Chris, did you mention this? Somebody mentioned this. It might have been you, and said that Gettleman drafted really well. Did not sign free agent. His free agent picks were horrible. But somebody mentioned it, that one of the worst things he didn't know how to pick a head coach. And that was, he didn't know how to pick a coaching staff. Because if he did have this coaching staff, he'd probably still have a job. I think to myself, I know I've been hard on Daniel Jones. I feel like I've been critical when it's not like I go for no reason. I'm critical of him. I'm critical of the things that he's done wrong. But I sit back and look at the improvement he's made in just 5 games this year and think to myself, if Dable was his head coach when he was a rookie,
he'd be a different quarterback.
He would be such a different quarterback, because he's always had the physical tools. It's just here, it was, like I said, lack of confidence. Something was amiss. This year, it's just I don't care. You don't need to throw over 300 yards. I watch him play. He plays winning football now. And
Eli said the same thing. Eli said the exact same thing. He said, given what Daniel has gone through, nobody could really survive or be successful with those circumstances. He said consistency, the right system. And again, Daniel has ownership in this offense. It's not, okay, Daniel, here's what we're going to play. Just go out there and do it. Daniel can tell Dable and Kafka, you know what? I don't really like this play. Can we try this? And there's that communication going back and forth. And it's made a big, big difference. It's that collaboration, and both sides are taking ownership of it. And you see the fruits of that labor.
I see on the sideline, good or bad, I always see Dable talking to his guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe the cameras didn't pick it up when Judge was there, but I don't ever remember like Judge walking up to the players and,
once
giving
in a
them
while,
a little smack in the rear saying good job, or if they needed a chewing out, going over there.
You would see it once in a while.
What's that?
Once in a while. But Dable, you're right, Dable. And this is what, being a CEO style head coach allows you to do. You can do this, McAdoo couldn't do it because he always had his face in that play card, that menu.
He's a bad leader of men, McAdoo was.
Yes.
Not a good
McAdoo just wasn't ready. And Joe's problem, Joe's a good football coach, a wonderful teacher. I will go down and die on that hill. Where Joe came up short, in my opinion, is he micromanaged. And that's where I think he got himself into trouble. When things got tough, instead of saying, okay, guys, let's band together. How can we solve this as a team? Joe I got the impression that he kind of shut people out and said, okay, I'm going to put it on my shoulders and I'm going to pull us through.
Mhm.
Can't do that.
Nope.
Can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
The impression I got with Joe, and I don't know, he might end up being a really good head coach one day. Because, like you said,
for a college team, maybe.
like you said, I do think he's a smart guy,
Mhm.
but I think he's a guy that wasn't ready for this job.
No.
The
Not
Giants,
New York. That's a tough one for your first one.
yeah,
Yep.
and I think the Giants were desperate. Like, let's be real, the Giants were a really bad situation when they were looking for a head coach. Right, Dave Gettleman was staying on as the general manager. The team had so many holes on it at the time. You were forcing Daniel Jones on that next coach. So the Giants said, we're going to take a huge swing here. We're going to take a gamble, a guy that, doesn't have much of a resume, and we're going to go for a home run. And
Yep.
it failed. It didn't work out.
It
But
did.
I wish Judge nothing but the best, if he
Yeah,
gets an
I'm
opportunity
with you.
in down the line.
Great guy. And like I said, a wonderful teacher. He held a little not off season. It was during the bye week. He had like a little clinic or a classroom, if you will, for members of the media. We could submit topics of what we wanted to learn about. And he pulled up film and he was teaching us. And it was great. I loved it. I could see how good of a teacher he was. You could ask questions. It was just like, you were part of the team, learning stuff. And he was fantastic. But, it's so much more when you're a head coach. You've got so much on your plate. You got to have the right personality for it. And Dable has the personality for it. Adversity pops up, unexpected pops up. What do you do when that happens? Do you panic, or do you just say, okay, you know what? My star linebacker is hurt. Okay, next man up, or we're going to adjust. It's how you respond to adversity. I think we could say that Dable, thus far, any adversity that has popped up, he's handled brilliantly, I think. So, all right. NY Giants 26 asks, do we think Tony will be here for the long term? And do I get a certain vibe from his situation, from his time here with the new regime? You know what? They say you never want to give up on talent. This kid's got talent. And I don't know if the injury issues are because of how he trains, how he recovers. I don't know the factor behind it. I do know that this team is probably going to talk about this injury situation because, again, last I checked, the Giants were like the fourth most injured team in the NFL. Not where you want,
which is a huge improvement.
Which is an improvement, right? Well, at least they're not leading the league, but they're still top five. They're still top five.
Still a huge improvement. That's probably like twice as good as we normally are.
Right.
But the point is they're going to want to address that, and I think they're going to talk about that more in the offseason. And here's the other thing, guys, when it comes to injuries, strength and conditioning is where you have to look for. A lot of people are quick to blame Ronnie Barnes and the medical staff. They treat the injuries. The strength and conditioning program has to take root, and by changing over, the coaching staff, the head coach position every 2 years, you don't really have a chance for that strength and conditioning program to take root. Weight loss doesn't happen overnight. Getting stronger doesn't happen overnight. It can take some guys months, if not years, to really see a difference. That's why we say rookies, they come in, they got to get a year into an NFL weight training program before you see a difference. So when you keep turning guys over that have different philosophies and whatnot, it's kind of like what they're doing to Daniel Jones, or what they've been doing to Daniel Jones. It's like you got to start from scratch, and it doesn't look good. So I think the Giants, when it comes to Tony, he's got the talent. Have the injuries been frustrating? Yes, but you know what? This is a kid who, from everybody I talked to, he knows what he's doing. One of the brightest bulbs, if you will, in the classroom. It's just his body, for whatever reasons, not cooperating. And rather than just say, okay, you know what, we're going to throw him aside, I think they're going to try and figure out why his body hasn't been recovering and maybe make some recommendations. And I saw a question earlier. Somebody said, well, is it because he's too busy pursuing a rap career? I don't think that's the case. I think Tony understands that, okay, look, this is my vocation. This is my job. the rap career, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's making him quite the amount of money that his football career can potentially make him. So I give him the benefit of the doubt. And I know fans are frustrated with him, but figure out what's going on here. And if he, if he decides next year, oh, I'm going to train on my own, or, oh, I'm not going to show up for the off season, the OTAs, then you start saying, okay, what's going through this kid's head? And then you start saying, okay, maybe he's just not buying in here.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a feeling he's not going to be back. That's just gut feeling. He had a lot of injuries at Florida too, so it's not like this is something new for him. It is frustrating. Then again, you can see the elusiveness, the twitchiness, the ability to make defenders look silly trying to attack him, which is why it's so frustrating that he can't. Every time it seems like he's ready to break out the hamstring or an ankle or something, where he just can't get in a groove. But the first week of the season, he was healthy. He played 7 snaps. So I don't know what that was about either. So, the problem is with Tony not being on the field is Dable and Shane are going to sit there and go, well, listen, we can win without this guy. He hasn't been a part of it. Maybe we look to get somebody that maybe not be as talented, but is a guy that we can get on the field. I don't know. That's why I'm saying this. It's easy to sit here and be a YouTube GM or a Madden GM. It's a piece of cake, but that's why those guys are where they are, and that's why we are where we are. So they make tough decisions. And again, I want to see Kadarius Toney get a good run, maybe after the bye. Maybe he's completely healthy after the bye and he can play the rest of the year, and we can finally see what he can contribute to this team. But yeah, right now it's just frustrating because I would love to see what he could do, especially in this offense.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give up on Tony because he doesn't cost much. He's still,
Right.
he's still young. He's still cheap. So, and there's really no point in trading him right now because there's no value. I mean, you'll be lucky if you get a 4th or 5th round pick for the guy right now. The guy hasn't been able to prove to stay on the football field. But if his question is, do I foresee Tony getting a second contract with the Giants? I'm going to lean no.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He was drafted before Shane got here. He's had an injury history throughout his collegiate and now pro career. So I don't have a lot of confidence that even if he gets on the field and starts playing at a pretty high level, that he's going to be able to maintain being able to stay on the field and stay healthy throughout his career. And the fact that they have no attachments to him, he's really got to take off and prove that he can stay healthy over a 2-year period before I could really see them entertaining, giving him a hefty second contract. So we'll see. But I don't think he's going to be off the team next year. I think he's coming back. He'll be back the year after that. And if he could produce and stay healthy, maybe you'll see a 5th-year option here. We'll see. But I don't think they're just going to throw him in the trash. I know a lot of fans are saying that, but there's really no point in doing that. The rap thing, I'm not reading too much into that.
Yeah.
I don't know for a fact, but I can't judge him off the field. I think the guy wants to play. I do think he's legitimately hurt, but I think he's fragile. I not when I say fragile, I'm not trying to say he's like soft in the sense that he like he's a baby. No, but I think he's prone to getting hurt.
Something in his training or something he's doing just isn't meshing.
And the thing I worry about with Tony too, and hopefully this is just something that he grows out of, but it really did leave a bad taste in my mouth. And I know some fans don't care about it, and I understand it, but to not show up for voluntary, and I know what the word voluntary means, guys, for everybody in the chat that wants to defend Kadarius Toney, but to not show up for voluntary camp specifically this year with a brand new head coach, with a brand new offensive scheme, I didn't like that. For a guy that you had really high expectations for. So I hope next year that won't be the case. He comes in, he wants to work really hard. And he gets, he gets on the right track. Listen, this fan base could be swayed really easily. I was never one of these fans that got on Saquon Barkley, but I remember it. Half this fan base was saying that Devontae Booker was a better running back than Saquon Barkley. Now people think Saquon Barkley is the second coming of Jesus Christ. So if Tony gets out on the football field and he starts playing at a high level, this fan base could flip really quick. So I'm not quite giving up on him yet. But what I will say is I have really high doubts that he's going to be here for more than a couple more years.
Next year's got to be a make or break for him, I would think. And an amazing guy to answer your question. I don't think you get what he has is a strain. I don't think it's a tear. I mean, I know a strain technically is a tear, but there are different degrees of tears. So this isn't an injury that he can get surgery on. Now, could he get that? What is it called? Platelet-rich therapy, I think it's called. Maybe. I mean, has he gotten it? I don't know, but you know, you got to find the root of the problem here.
So that's what it technically is a hamstring strain.
It's a slight tear. And hamstrings.
No. But I'm saying, is it a grade 1, a grade 2? Like what?
We don't know. We don't. I would
okay, because
think
that's all I've heard is it's a hamstring, but I didn't know the severity of the hamstring injury.
Right.
I thought it was a pull, which is way different than a strain could take.
Well,
weeks.
they're saying it's a strain. So
okay, well that would explain why he's been out so long, because as a guy that lifts weights and has strained my calf, I know that took a good 4 or 5 weeks to heal, and I'm not on a football field, so I understand hamstrings take a beating. I didn't know it was a strain. I thought it was a pulled hamstring, which is way different than a strain.
Yeah.
This is why I had to come on the show. I had to get straight from Pat. She knows what she's talking about.
I'm worried about Aziz too. I saw Foxy Dog put that.
Yeah.
And we talked about that before the year started when BadDog and myself, and we probably talked about it too on this show. I really did worry about when you started to hear some of the injuries that you saw how much he bulked up in the offseason, how big he got, that may have contributed to some of the injuries that we were hearing, the lower body injuries. And now he's had, to my understanding, this is not even the same calf. This is now the other calf that's bothering him now with this injury with Aziz.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something
that's concerning.
Yeah, it is. And again, this goes back to what I was saying about let this strength and conditioning staff that Dable hired do its thing. Because right now, everybody's evaluating everybody. So you'll see guys next year that will come in. Some guys will lose weight. Some guys will bulk up. You know, it's a matter of who's going to listen to the coaches. Now, see, what bothers me is a lot of these guys hire their own personal trainers. And that's fine. They can do what they want. But are these trainers really skilled in football stuff, or are they just general bodybuilder type trainers?
Way different training.
It's much different. And are you having guys do movements that maybe don't correlate to what they would do on a football field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like with Landon Collins coming back, Landon Collins is probably in great shape, but is he in great football shape?
No.
That's what training camp is for. That's what the preseason's for. That is for those guys to get their endurance and their football. Because listen, like I said, I'm a guy that works out a lot, but you let me go golfing for 18 holes and my entire oblique section is going to be killing me for 4 days because I don't work those muscles the way I would with a golf swing. So like you said, Pat, every movement is different things. If they're working out like bodybuilders, that's awesome if you want to be a bodybuilder, but it's not really conducive if you want to be a football player. So the training is obviously, these guys are ridiculously, these are the strongest guys on the face of the planet. I always say when the Giants used to play up here, standing next to you don't get an appreciation for how big they actually are because it's all relative when they're on the football field together because they're all huge. When you're standing next to one of those dudes that's 6'7", 350, and it looks like he has legs hanging off of his shoulders, those guys are so big. I swear they're not human. But at the same time, you had a guy like Eli. Eli wasn't like he's not posing for any muscle.
Eli had a dad bod when he was in his prime.
Right. Did you see how skinny he got? He lost like 10 pounds.
Yeah.
At least.
Right.
I was like, I'm looking at him.
Yeah, Eli's in better shape now than he was when he was winning Super Bowls.
Right. So CeCe Sabathia is in better shape now than he was winning World Series with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at some of the old offensive linemen. Chris Snee lost a lot of bulk.
He looks great.
O'Hara, I mean, Richie Seibert.
I miss those guys. I miss those guys so much.
Yeah. What a group.
We need Deal. We need O'Hara. We need Snee, McKenzie. We need that back here.
Yep.
Yeah. Those were the days for sure.
That's what Shane's going to give us.
Yeah.
Shane's going to give us.
We're getting there. Andrew Thomas is legit.
Evan Neal's going to be legit too. We're going to
give Shane. You got to give Shane time. This is the first year, no salary cap to work with. Give the guy some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think he's going to get it. And if he gets it, I can't wait. Shane, in talking with him, very bright young man, a scout, not lazy. I like that he gets out and he actually does scouting. And he knows what he wants. He knows how he wants it, the grades submitted. everything I've heard about how he's running the scouting department, the personnel department, is how it should be.
Right.
So,
And this year he gets his own scouts. He didn't have them last year. So I think that'll also make a difference.
Yep,
is
absolutely.
That they can scout players for the Giants.
Yep.
Obviously, they were scouting players, but they didn't know when they were scouting players that that's where they were going. They didn't know they were going to the Giants. Maybe they did. I don't know how that works, but I would assume they didn't know he was getting that job. So with his own scouting department this year, I'm excited for the future. It's the first time I can sit and go, I'm excited for the future.
I am as well. I think Shane and Dable have this team on the right track. And look, there's going to be some bumps. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be, smooth sailing straight ahead, but I think this team is better equipped to handle those bumps than maybe they've been in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Chris Long. I thought it was a really good comparison. He compared us to the Titans, and I think it's a good comparison. He's like, are the New York Giants the new Titans team? And you think about the Titans team, like, they're not a team that's like incredibly talented. They have some talent for sure, but it's the coaching. The coaching has gotten the most out of that team year in and year out. And when you can coach, you don't need the best talent on the football field. The Patriots, we've talked about this several times, BadDog. The Patriots never had the most talented team in the NFL outside of the year they went 18-0. But more often than not, they just had guys that the coaching staff knew that they could get the most out of those players because of their work ethic, because of specific traits that they had, that they knew that they could fit what they were looking to do. So if Brian Daboll continues to grow as a head coach, there's no reason why this Giants team can't have a very quick turnaround. And I think that's what I'm most encouraged by so far.
Yeah, finally, we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. That light's on a train. So that's good news for the Giants.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we have gone almost 2 hours, and this has been great. This has been a fast 2 hours. So I've had a great time. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank everybody who came. I want to thank Tainah and BadDog. Guys, we should think about doing this again. I had fun.
Definitely.
I don't know if you guys are up for it or
Absolutely.
again. But maybe we can do it again. Folks, if you didn't get your questions answered, I'm doing a mailbag on Giants Country tomorrow. So if you get your questions in, like within the next half hour, I should be able to get them answered for you. And then, of course, we'll look to be back next week. Hopefully BadDog will still have his Yankees playing.
Hopefully.
Tainah, I know you'll be there because,
Yeah. It's a funeral. I can't wait for December for the Mets. Start talking off season. I'm done with baseball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got hockey starting up at least. And
I got the Knicks starting up. They start next week. So I'm excited about that.
So, I mean, it's not like all's lost.
But what I'm most excited about is
the Giants.
Yes, the Giants. Exactly.
4-1.
We got the Giants.
So
let's go.
You guys got a show coming up, I guess, right? Are you guys?
Yeah, we're crazy. We're gonna go live for another 2 hours and change.
That's right.
That's dedicated. See, and I thought I was crazy with the hours, but going back to what somebody said, when you love what you do, you don't mind the hours. And I know I love what I do, whether it be podcasting, writing, interacting with you guys. I just love it. It makes it so worthwhile. I don't even think of it as work. So anyway, thank you everybody for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Thank you for coming to the live broadcast. Next week, David Turner and I will break down the Baltimore Giants game. Tuesday will be Twitter Tuesday. Wednesday, Harry Carson joins me on the program. Thursday is going to be the crossover show with the one and only Tony Wiggins. And then Friday, guys, let's see if we can do this again next Friday.
Before you close this out, I know it's your show.
Okay.
I need a score prediction.
Oh, I was trying to avoid that. You're killing me, man. This is the last time, I promise you, this is the last time I'm going to do this. The last time I'm going to not pick the Giants to win a game. Because Jackson and the Ravens, they make me a little nervous. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say 27-23. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think the Ravens are going to pull it out. And this is the last time I'm going to say that for a few weeks now.
Yeah. All right. Here's what I'm going to say. And I know Authentic came at me today a little bit on Twitter because I called out everybody for picking against the Giants. And I've been picking against the Giants and it's been working. But when I'm on YouTube, when I'm on YouTube, I try to give my unbiased opinion because I think that's what people come to me for. They don't want to see me fluff things up and say, Chris, my unbiased opinion is that the New York Giants are going to lose this football game. But I think it's going to be very close. I think the Giants lose by about 3 points. I think I have a 23-20 Baltimore. But I hope I'm dead wrong. I hope I look like an absolute fool. And I don't care that I'm trying to be unbiased on YouTube. I still think from the lens of a fan. And I hope every expert, because I'm certainly not an expert, I hope every so-called expert looks like an absolute fool this week, and the New York Giants continue to prove people wrong.
Yep. And for what it's worth, when I have picked against the Giants, they've won. So take that as an omen. Dog, you want to put in a prediction, or are you gonna punt on this?
I do. Yeah. Giants are winning this football game.
Oh.
24-21. Graham Gano with a 50-yarder. Let's get this done, Giants fans.
I love it. I love it.
Let's go. I love it.
I certainly think we got a shot. I certainly think we got a shot.
I think so too, but I think it's going to be a close one. Yeah. And, like I said, Jacksonville, I already know I'm going with the Giants unless the Giants get wiped out with injuries. Seattle, same thing. This week, I don't know. Maybe I'm conditioned. I don't know at this point, but I just need to really get that reinforcement. So
they're conditioning me the other way for the first time in a long time. So I really feel like we can win this game.
I'm going to tell you this right now, BadDog. Win, lose, or draw this week. I already know I'm picking us the following week. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this on ESPN. They have like those like predictions, like in terms of percentage that your team could win the game or not.
Yeah.
So apparently they had it for like the rest of our games. They only have us as a 26% chance to win in Jacksonville right now.
Oh my goodness.
We get no love.
26%
but that's great. The Giants keep showing that disrespect them. That they'll prove us all wrong.
I
am fine with that. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong.
I can't wait to be the worst 5-1 team in the history of the NFL.
Hey, listen, I mean, this goes back to since I was a kid, 1990. Carl Banks, Lawrence Harris sitting on the sideline saying, they didn't give us a prayer in San Francisco. And Carl Banks said, they didn't give us a prayer in this one against the Bears. In 2007, everybody picked against us every week. 2011, everyone picked against us every week. Keep picking against us. I'm not picking us. We're winning this game, damn it.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And listen, I'll sacrifice my win-loss record like I did in 2011, by the way, when I whatever I said the Giants were going to do, they did the opposite. I took one for the team. So Papa Guzzo, you're calling me a chicken. I took one for the team. I'm taking one for the team now. Okay.
Let's go.
Giants fans, just so you know, because when I bet on the games, I always lose. Now, I'm not putting money on the Giants, so we're safe. I'm just picking them to win, okay?
You know what you have to do, BadDog? You got to take one for the team. You got to put money on the Ravens.
All right, I'll do that. If it means the Giants
if you're always wrong, you better be betting the Ravens this week.
All right, I got that. I'll put money on the Ravens so I lose my whatever. I don't bet a lot anyway.
But even if it's $2.
Yeah, it'll be like 10. Well, I'll take a $10 loss.
All right. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. All right, Giant fans. Well, stay tuned to find out how BadDog's bet works out to see if I'm wrong, which hopefully I will be, and if Tainah's wrong. So we will see you next week. Thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you check out Tainah and BadDog. They're going to be doing their show, I think, at 10 o'clock. Yes. Going another 2 hours. Those crazy kids love it. And we'll talk to you soon, everybody. Take care.
Peace.